The youth curfew is back in effect at this hour. Whether it can be fully enforced remains a question.
And this, unfortunately, is just another example of poor planning.
What we're learning about a plea for volunteers and now canceled off days for police.
He had a gun because he was scared for his life. We live in Baltimore City.
A stunning admission from a Baltimore mother about her 17-year-old son who was shot by police. A community speaks about the troubling realities on the streets. Baltimore City State's attorney asking for more tax dollars to hold criminals accountable, how much he's asking for and what he plans to use it on. Could BPD's commissioner be eyeing an opening nearby?
I am 100% focused on doing the job I'm doing right here in Baltimore City.
The response to swirling questions and how it could affect the department.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
We begin tonight with breaking news in Essex. Baltimore County Police on the scene of a reported shooting along South Maryland Avenue. That shooting site near Sandalwood Elementary School and Deep Creek Middle School. Fox 45 News has a crew on the way and will bring you more information when we arrive at the scene. Good evening, I'm Maxine Stryker. Kai Jackson has the night off. The second weekend of a youth curfew is underway right now in Baltimore as juvenile crime concerns continue to circulate across the city. Fox 45's Keith Daniels looks into a mother's concerns after her son was shot by police. But we begin with Jeff Abel and the efforts to staff connection centers designed to keep Baltimore's children away from trouble. Jeff, what can you tell us?
Well, you know, curfew enforcement efforts are back on here in Fells Point tonight and in other areas of downtown here. And while police have long maintained it will be relieving the burden on city police tell us tonight a whole different story.
This is not anything new. We're evolving the way that we enforce youth curfew.
It was last Friday, the first day of the city's new curfew enforcement effort, when the mayor vowed to put concerns to rest over the toll curfew enforcement will have on police.
I will be reaching out directly to the union and explaining and talking to them how about this is not the case. Again, we want to relieve them of something that has been their sole duty.
But the very next day, the president of the police union says the city canceled off days for 20 to 30 members of the police force, posting them downtown as backup for the curfew enforcement effort. In a statement, the president of the union writes, "The depleted ranks of the BPD are already stretched to a breaking point. I guess the mayor and police commissioner want to test when the house of cards will collapse."
And this, unfortunately, is just another example of poor planning.
Attempts to find civilians willing to interact with curfew violators appears to be a tall task, too. In a high-importance alert email issued to city employees on Thursday, City Hall called it a challenge and asked for volunteers to work as late as 2 in the morning, monitoring children who break curfew. In an email to the mayor's office today, we asked if the city was able to locate enough volunteers. If not, how will the city staff those positions? And will there be hands-on training and background checks for those who volunteer to monitor children? So far, no reply. But remember this promise.
I will be reaching out directly to the union.
That was 1 week ago.
I will be reaching out directly to the union and explaining and talking to them how about this is not the case.
Tonight, the union says it's still waiting on the call. We also did ask the City Hall today about the impact this is having on police. So far yet, no reply. We're live in Fells Point tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. The mayor's office says the summer youth engagement strategy as a whole has a budgeted price tag of more than $1 million. Overtime for city employees could add to that price tag. Critics say the city is taking a big chance with taxpayer dollars since there's no guarantee that Baltimore's children will spend time at these connection centers. So that brings us to our question of the day. Do you believe the city is prepared to enforce the youth curfew all summer long? So far, 93% of people who voted say no. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
He had a gun because he was scared for his life. We live in Baltimore City.
Well, a stunning admission from a Baltimore mother whose 17-year-old son was shot by police, saying he needs to have a gun to protect himself. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with her concerns and why some argue she shouldn't have let her son put himself in danger. Keith.
Well, Maxine, as you can imagine, whenever a juvenile is involved in a crime, oftentimes a concerned mother is also involved. And tonight, a closer look at that parental involvement. Kiara Franklin is a Baltimore City mother, reigniting the debate this week over parent accountability when a child is accused of a crime.
Stop! 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 Put the gun down! Put the gun down!
Franklin's son, 17-year-old Mekhi Franklin, shot by a Baltimore police officer 3 weeks ago, now facing charges including first-degree assault, shot during a foot chase, police say, while he was holding a stolen 9mm handgun. His mother speaking out this week about the shooting, but also confronted with questions about her responsibility, her accountability.
Yeah, how am I accountable for what he has on him? That's not bad parenting. That's not the parent's fault. You know, how can you blame that on the parent?
But Reverend P.M. Smith, longtime pastor at Huber Memorial Church in Loch Raven and a former defense attorney, believes there is a level of accountability for parents when children do wrong.
You feed and you're clothing them, and you don't know where they are. You don't know what they're bringing in the house. You don't know what they're carrying out of the house. That is a situation where parents lack accountability because they're not handling their responsibility.
As the juvenile crime rate continues to climb in Baltimore, many parents are desperately searching for a cure. Smith blames broken homes for much of the growing crime problem.
They always say everything starts in the home, which it does, but what does a home look like? You know, you never know what's going on in their home.
My son's 17 years old. You know, he's not a 5-year-old little kid, you feel me? So at the end of the day, there's only but so much I can do.
That may be true, but when you have a young person who you know is headed in the wrong direction, you ask, you seek, you demand, you get all the help you can. Whether it's an uncle, whether it's a stepfather, whether it's a grandfather, whether it's juvenile services, you get all the help you can.
Well, regarding Mekhi Franklin, he's out of the hospital. He's out of the hospital, and he's been moved to central booking. He's waiting there for a hearing that could decide whether or not his case is moved to juvenile court. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. The Mayor's Office for Neighborhood Safety and Engagement unveiled 2 new programs aimed at curbing youth violence this week. The Safe Passage Initiative will put city employees near schools from 2 to 5 in the afternoon to keep the peace and offer resources for students. That program is being piloted at 2 schools. Monty also unveiling the Peace Mobile, a bus to be deployed to communities in need of resources following traumatic events, helping residents in the healing process. Now, week 1 of budget hearings wrapping up as Baltimore City Council members, they continue to question the city's allocation of funds from the American Rescue Plan. Mayor Brandon Scott's Office of Recovery is tasked with overseeing the city's $641 million allotment in what the mayor claims to be a transparent process. But a Fox 45 News investigation found the office was shielding details from city council members and the public, including emails about the ARPA selection process. One city council member cited that lack of transparency tonight.
You said that you know, that you hope it doesn't get misrepresented or there's further confusion, but wouldn't there be no confusion if you just answered how much each organization got?
I did not want people to be confused as to thinking that there were some nonprofits that did not get all of the funding that could be available to them. There was a process that BCF went through to identify the criteria and the amount of funds that each nonprofit could receive.
Now, the Office of Recovery saying if any money isn't properly allocated, the prime recipient would have to repay those funds. That same office is tasked with keeping tabs on the money. Several nonprofits are receiving up to $5 million in ARPA grants, but Councilman Yitzi Schleifer suggesting the funds might be better used, helping agencies with aging equipment and short staff like DPW and the fire department. The fire union revealing they asked the city for ARPA funding, but their request fell on deaf ears.
Requesting that ARPA money be used to make a one-time purchase of multiple trucks and engines to help us get through this over the next few years. This could be a stopgap till the funding sources are found.
We believe that it should have been spent on some big ticket items like getting rid of all the vacants, like getting, you know, updating all the equipment needs that we have, whether it be in DPW or the fire department or police department or housing department. And so, you know, $641 million could be spent and invested very quickly in this city by giving it directly to specific agencies to handle our basic city services.
City State's Attorney Ivan Bates also asking for more tax dollars to fund his office. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost shares how much he's asking for and what he plans to do with the money.
Ivan Bates is looking to get an increase in his budget for next year, saying he needs the resources to make sure his prosecutors can spend time taking cases to court, not spending hours reviewing video evidence. When a prosecutor takes a case to court, there's evidence, and sometimes it looks like this: body camera video, evidence that must be reviewed as cases move forward.
The standards are for every 100 officers, there should be at least one person reviewing body camera footage. Baltimore City has four individuals reviewing body camera footage.
City State's Attorney Ivan Bates asking Mayor Brandon Scott for an additional $800,000 in his budget. $300,000 of that, Bates says, needs to go towards helping offset the required resources to review all of that video.
We need to make sure that we get the resources to help us get the individuals who can review the body camera footage.
The state's attorney has an affirmative obligation to turn over any material in its possession or in the police department's possession.
Former Deputy Baltimore Police Commissioner Jason Johnson outlining how long logging that evidence can take.
Some of these cases involve multiple police officers on the scene, all simultaneously recording what has happened on the scene. All of that material is discoverable, potentially. Unlike a stationary, static piece of evidence that can just be looked at or a report that can be read, they have to be reviewed in real time.
Bates says more money is also needed to help upgrade the office's technology to ensure investigations remain solid.
We have a server that's been 12 years old. At any moment, we could lose it.
Bates's budget calling for more funding as well to help with training for new prosecutors. When assuming the top prosecutor's role, Bates faced an office plagued with dozens of vacancies. And now he says he needs to rebuild, and that requires funding, $500,000 specifically.
Just making sure that we can give these prosecutors who are out there on the front line working so hard, make sure they have the services and make sure they have the support that they need to keep their job and to be successful.
Right now, the mayor's budget proposal does not account for that additional $500,000 to help the top prosecutor in Baltimore rebuild the office. The City State's Attorney's budget hearing is scheduled for Monday evening at 7 o'clock at City Hall. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Bates is also offering clarification on his citation docket rolled out this week, which will address quality of life crimes like dirt bike charges and trespassing. In a thread on Twitter, Bates clarified citing some of the citations, saying they don't immediately carry a criminal charge. He says first-time offenders will receive up to 5 hours of community service, and they'll be offered resources like drug treatment and mental health services. A second offense carries 10 hours of community service, while a third citation carries criminal prosecution. Taking a live look now at the Inner Harbor after a steamy day in Baltimore. We saw temperatures in the 90s for the first time this year. Here's meteorologist Jasmine Lomax with a look at our weekend forecast. I know it was too hot for you.
Yes, it was too hot, and even now at this hour, it's still very, very warm across the state. We're mainly seeing temperatures in the 70s and still the 80s in some locations, including here in Baltimore. So if you're heading anywhere tonight or early tomorrow morning, temperatures will be pretty mild, but by the afternoon, this is around where our high temperatures will be. So a big difference from the hot weather that we had today. Not only did we hit the 90s for the first time this year, but we actually set a record of 97 for the date. We're looking at a 17-degree drop in numbers tomorrow, though, with highs only around 80. I'll let you know how long the lower temperatures stick around coming up in my Weather Authority forecast. Back to you.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, the results are in from Operation Washout, nabbing nearly 100 suspected violent criminals. What federal agents are revealing about common ties between the suspects. And Baltimore Police Commissioner Michael Harrison doubling down on his loyalty to Baltimore, why others aren't so sure amid an enticing opportunity to our south. And President Biden addressing the debt ceiling deal ahead of his expected signature tomorrow. Why lawmakers on both sides remain frustrated with what's in the bill. We continue to follow that breaking news out of Baltimore County. Police on the scene of a reported shooting at a Royal Farms in Essex. At least one person is hurt, we're learning. The Royal Farms is along South Marlin Avenue near Sandalwood Elementary School and Deep Creek Middle School. Fox 45's Vincent Hill on the way to that scene. He'll have more information as soon as he arrives. The Baltimore teen charged with shooting and killing the husband of a police lieutenant in January of 2022 has been sentenced. Sahayu Kargbo was 18 and a student at Mervo when he was arrested for the murder of James Blue III in front of his home. This afternoon, he was sentenced to 65 years in prison. That's on top of 5 years in a gun crime previously sentenced. City State's Attorney Ivan Bates says he hopes the sentencing offers closure to Blue's family and the community. Nearly 100 fugitives are now off the streets thanks to Operation Washout. But what's being done to keep them behind bars? Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell explains how federal, state, and local agents are working together to reduce crime.
95 fugitives now off the streets, the majority accused of committing violent crimes in the greater Baltimore region, including murder.
We're here today for Operation Washout.
Federal, state, and local law enforcement and partnering agencies announcing the result of a month-long operation targeting wanted individuals. Among the fugitives, officials say, are 17 individuals wanted for murder, 16 for attempted murder, 19 for robbery, and more than a half dozen wanted on weapons charges. The majority, if not all, officials add, repeat violent offenders.
By the time they hit the Marshal Service task force's radar, they have committed multiple crimes.
The vicious cycle of repeat violent offenders, a major driver of crime here in Baltimore.
The problem of repeat offenders is a problem, but it's not just a problem for Baltimore, it's a problem everywhere. And what we know is that when people commit violent crime, they usually didn't just start at that crime.
This reality is why officials have pushed the importance of accountability and consequence, what some law enforcement experts say has lacked here in Baltimore. City State's Attorney Ivan Bates, who took office at the beginning of this year, has vowed to enforce all laws. And today, U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland, Eric Barron, who last summer announced an Al Capone prosecution method, which involves taking repeat offenders off the streets by any means necessary, promising to explore possible federal charges in these cases.
The U.S. Attorney's Office is going to be reviewing each and every case for potential federal prosecution.
Officials also discussing the motives behind these repeat violent offenders, who they are, and what's driving them to commit crimes. Of the fugitives, investigators say 6 are gang members. Others involved in the drug trade, another known driver of violence here in Baltimore. Officials revealing the roundup led to the seizure of 10 firearms, 72 pounds of marijuana, 78 grams of crack cocaine, 6 grams of heroin, and more than $3,200 in currency.
Wherever there's drugs, there's guns. Wherever there's guns, there's a potential for violence.
It's Alexa Ashwell reporting.
Passing this budget agreement was critical. The stakes could not have been higher. If we had failed to reach an agreement on the budget, there were extreme voices threatening to take America for the first time in our 247-year history into default on our national debt. Nothing would have been more irresponsible. Nothing would have been more catastrophic.
President Joe Biden addressing the debt ceiling deal passed in the Senate last night. He says he commends both parties for working together to avoid a default, passing legislation just 3 days before a deadline. The president expects to sign that deal tomorrow, but both parties still frustrated over some aspects of the bill.
The most important deficit we have is our trade deficit, and until we do something about that, I think we're not putting this economy on a path for true broad-based growth, where American workers can really be the foundation of our growth and have a chance to get ahead.
This is a bill that weakens us in the fight against climate change. It takes food away from hungry people. It makes students who are struggling on student loan debt locked in harder on making their payments.
Democrats tried to avoid cuts to federal safety net programs like food assistance. Republicans, they tried to negotiate deeper spending cuts in order to pass the bill. The deal raises the debt ceiling for 2 years. Coming up, finding beauty in the most obscure places, how a Baltimore sculptor is channeling his passion for Charm City into his art. The Bible is now banned in a Utah school district. Why? Administrators say kids shouldn't be reading the religious text.
It was a hot start to the weekend. We had lots of sunshine, dry weather, but that changes tomorrow. Temperatures will be noticeably lower with highs only in the low 80s. We have the next chance for showers and storms, but it'll be dry on Sunday and Monday. Temperatures still a little closer to average. I'll let you know what to expect tomorrow and for the upcoming week in my Weather Authority forecast.
Taking a look now at the Fox box, top left, no more Bibles at a school district in Utah. School officials say parts of the Bible contain vulgarity and violence that is inappropriate for children. Top right, at least 50 people dead in India after 2 passenger trains derailed, sending a dozen train cars onto a nearby track. Indian officials say crashes are common and are mostly caused by human error or outdated equipment. Bottom left, a surging end to the week on Wall Street. All 3 major indices up more than 1% on the heels of a new job report. And the bottom right, that job report shattering expectations. The U.S. created almost 340,000 jobs, but the unemployment rate is up to nearly 4%. Experts say one aspect of the jobs report caught them off guard.
It was actually youth unemployment that ticked up quite a bit. But it's youth unemployment for whites particularly. It went up to about a little over 9%, which is quite high for that population.
Summer job season may remedy that, which would also help employers who are still short-staffed and help young people can be especially vulnerable to high inflation. You can stay up to date by signing up for News on the Go. Go to foxbaltimore.com and click on Mobile Alerts Sign Up under the Station tab. You can also download the Fox 45 app for your smartphone. Just search for WBFF in your app store. Ahead at 10:30, MS-13 in Maryland, the high-profile gang arrest and why federal agents say the gang may be more prevalent than you think. And Baltimore Police Commissioner Michael Harrison taking questions about his future amid speculation of a possible move, why he remains committed to Baltimore. We're continuing to follow that breaking news at 10:30. Baltimore County Police investigating a shooting in Essex near Sandalwood Elementary School. Fox 45's Vincent Hill live on the scene right now with the latest. Vincent, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Maxine, we know police say they responded to a shooting here around 8:30. Now, I want to go ahead and step out of the way and show you just how wide of a crime scene we're talking about. You can see crime scene tape here at the Royal Farms here at Sandalwood Drive, and it also stretches over here to the Sandalwood School. We can see investigators there near the school collecting evidence, as well as a little further down the school. Now, we don't know if these were juveniles involved. There are unconfirmed reports that 2 teens may have been shot here around 8:30, but Baltimore County Police have yet to confirm that, Maxine.
All right, Vince, thank you. We'll check in with you shortly to see if you have any more information. The Frederick County Sheriff's Office announcing the arrest of 5 men for the murder of a 15-year-old boy. Some of those suspects tied to the notoriously dangerous MS-13 gang. The men, who police say are all undocumented immigrants, it's not the first time MS-13 has carried out this type of violence. In Aberdeen, 20-year-old Kayla Hamilton was murdered almost a year ago. Law enforcement officials say a 17-year-old with gang ties carried out the crime. U.S. Attorney Eric Barron says the gang continues to be a problem in Maryland.
MS-13 is a major violent organization. Continues to be a problem. We continue to look at MS-13 and prosecute MS-13 whenever they do violence anywhere in the state.
You didn't know. The Sheriff's Department says all 5 arrested are in the U.S. illegally. The assistant warden at Frederick County's Adult Detention Center says these men will begin the deportation process once their time is served. And today, another arrest of a man allegedly in the U.S. illegally announced in a different Frederick murder. Santos Felipe Reyes Valle was taken into custody Wednesday. According to Frederick police, he's charged with murder and a stabbing last month. Today, the Frederick County Sheriff's Office identified Reyes Valle as being in the country illegally and alerted immigration officials. A 54-year-old man shot and killed in Woodlawn. Police have identified him as Frank Eubanks Jr. We're told he was found around 10:30 just off of Security Boulevard. He died in the hospital. That homicide is under investigation. Community leaders in Baltimore County wearing orange to address gun violence today. The event was put on by Moms Demand Action, part of a yearly campaign to address the need to end gun violence. Those who have lost friends and family in shootings sharing their stories at today's event.
I'm here today in memory of my precious son, Tavon Terrell Waters Sr. He was senselessly shot in the neck October 18, 2006, while parked at a traffic light in northwest Baltimore. Before my son got shot, my family has been plagued by senseless gun violence. My mother was shot standing in her front door in 1992. My nephew was shot in Annapolis, Maryland in the early 1990s. So was my sister, Valerie. I have lost 6 precious loved ones to gun violence. My uncle, who was only 23, his lady friend in the 1980s, and my 16-year-old cousin, Derek Wharton, in the 1980s. 6 other family members have been shot and survived. But today, I'm here to say that we can and we will and we must make a difference. We can end senseless gun violence.
This event also honors lives that have been lost to gun violence. County Executive Johnny Olszewski joined them there today.
Baltimore is like the best city in the East Coast for artists. It really is.
Well, it's all around you, but you may not know it. In this week's Maryland Moment, Fox 45 Shannon Lilly and photojournalist Lane Blank introduce us to a local artist making a lasting impact.
Take a ride around the city.
The architecture of these churches is just amazing.
You see them every day.
I didn't know it was right here.
Landmarks that paint the Baltimore skyline.
Johns Hopkins.
Backdrops to our busy lives. But look again.
Like a princess is back there.
You may not have noticed these windows of City Hall.
I think they're pretty.
About a century younger than the rest.
I never really thought about it much.
The carvings on the grounds of Johns Hopkins University.
Yeah, it's very well integrated.
A reflection of our own Chesapeake Bay.
Like, I carved that chunk of City Hall or whatever, and like, that's kind of neat.
And tucked away inside a South Baltimore studio.
Just making sure you're not in the line of fire if I do something crazy.
These hands hold the tools
I really thought it wasn't going to break. You okay?
That helped create them.
It resonates on a primal level with, I'm just still a little kid that wants to beat rocks together.
Between the sparks, the smoke, and the dust. From a young age, Sebastian Martirana found his passion in this. Moving from D.C. to Baltimore for grad school at the Maryland Institute College of Art, now...
It's nice when things break the way you want them to.
He's been breaking things for a living for the last 2 decades. It's a craft that takes precision.
If you're carving a letter and something looks wrong, everybody knows it's wrong.
And in some cases, there's no room for mistakes.
The fact that it's stone, it's both strong and fragile. There's no control Z, there's no undo. If something hits the floor, it's done.
But when done correctly, his messages can live on.
He's working with something that literally took millions of years to create in a tradition that dates back, more than thousands of years.
Brian Miller, owner of Catalyst Contemporary in Baltimore,
3 towels
has been showcasing Martirana's work in their Baltimore gallery and as far away as Miami for the last 2 years.
It takes a tremendous amount of patience and foresight to move through that stone process. You can see that in every piece that he makes.
One of his favorite pieces, 7 words etched into an old printer's block. These were words that could not be used in certain federal documents at the time.
Here's a piece of history that was used to make prints, and he's implanting it with these words that are now memorialized. That concept matching technique, to me, was perfect. It was absolutely perfect.
From one piece to another.
That's kind of what I'm working on right now, is this attempt to freeze in stone this moment of unveiling.
It's here.
Kind of shown through the motion of fabric kind of blowing in the wind.
They're chiseled into shape.
Baltimore's the best city in the East Coast for artists.
But he isn't just creating in our city. His work spans the East Coast. From the Grand Seal at the Federal Reserve in D.C. to carvings inside St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City and in between, we see a shining product. He sees the grind it took to get here.
The Grand Seal is now part of this unbelievable marble interior inside of this building behind these massive glass doors, but I remember it right here, and with me sitting in a pile of dust, carving details in the eagle toes.
So next time you're out,
now that I'm looking at it over again, it's really pretty.
Look up.
There is so much beauty in Baltimore.
Because these monuments,
the fact that they constructed these buildings centuries ago and they're still standing,
will outlive you and me.
What is it going to look like in 500 years from now? Or what's it going to look like in 1,000 years from now when it's being, pulled out of the silt in the bottom of the ocean?
Our story being preserved.
Work that, again, will survive fire and flood.
Through a medium with memory.
What does it mean? Can it be deciphered? And what did we make mark of now?
Shannon Murray, Fox 45 News.
I am 100% focused on doing the job I'm doing right here in Baltimore City.
Washington, D.C.'s police chief retires tomorrow, and Commissioner Harrison may be on the list of candidates. Fox 45's Vincent Hill has more on his comments and what a departure to D.C. could mean for Baltimore police.
Certainly, we will measure success in a number of ways. It will be, first of all, our ability to reduce crime.
That was Commissioner Michael Harrison on his first day in office in 2019. 4 years later, a somewhat sense of success. Homicides and non-fatal shootings are down for the year compared to his earlier years, but still at recent highs. So, could Harrison be looking to take his crime fighting elsewhere?
I am 100% focused on doing the job I'm doing right here in Baltimore City.
According to the Washington Times, candidates from Baltimore have interviewed to be the next chief of police for Washington, D.C. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost catching up with Harrison about his intentions.
I wake up every day, spend all my day, and I go to sleep every night with my mind on how to do my job better right here in Baltimore.
So not looking to leave?
I'm focused on doing my job here.
Harrison's not answering yes or no, not sitting well with FOP President Mike Mancuso, calling Harrison's response disingenuous.
probably because he doesn't know yet.
Law enforcement analyst Melissa Pinkleton explains why she believes Harrison didn't answer directly.
What that means in politician terms is that I don't have a direct answer for you because I don't even know the answer myself. So until I get the answer that I'm waiting for, I'm focused on doing the job that I'm currently being paid for.
She says rumors of a leadership change could affect the morale of officers.
When there's that uncertainty, it can be unsettling for the officers. Are we going to bring in somebody new? Is this going to get worse? Could it possibly get worse?
Meanwhile, as some of the mayor's top executives, like Muncie Director Shantae Jackson, have stepped down,
the commissioner could very likely see the writing on the wall, as you would say, and start looking for a position somewhere else, knowing that his contract is coming up and may not be renewed.
Pinkleton says Harrison could be following suit with the city's crime crisis and a department stretched thin.
Regardless of what the particular exact statistics are from this year to last year, you can't ignore the fact that Baltimore is down 500 officers, is having shootings every weekend, has a problem with their juveniles. This commissioner is going through all of that.
Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Well, excuse me, let me get to the right spot here. A string of murders over the past month, leaving residents in one southwest Baltimore community on edge. Morrell Park struck by at least 3 homicides, accounting for 75% of homicides in the entire Southwest District. 2 parents of small children saying they're looking to leave the area as soon as possible.
We sit at the table, we hear a gunshot. The kids are like, "Did you hear that? I wonder who that is." That's sad. A 7- and 8-year-old to say that.
There's a lot of kids fighting around here, a lot of younger kids starting to sell drugs.
Parents also say police are constantly on patrol, but the violence seems to show no signs of slowing down.
We are getting ready for our next weather maker tomorrow. Will lead to the chance for showers and storms, but we're back to dry weather on Sunday and again on Monday. I'll let you know the timing of tomorrow's storms and what to expect as the weekend ends coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
We have some new details just coming in from Baltimore County Police on that shooting. We're now learning 2 children taken to the hospital after that shooting in Essex. We'll be right back with more.